This podcast is brought to you by the Prospect Research Institute, where researchers come to learn, innovate, and connect. Hi, I'm Jennifer Filla, and this is the first ever Chat Bites member update. It's a way for me to share tips from the courses that I'm developing at the Prospect Research Institute. Right now, I'm working on Introduction to Prospect Management. It's an on-demand course and it's part of the research-focused bundle of courses, and it's due out this year. One of the topics that gets a lot of member interest is around data coding and reporting. And in fact, I am really excited. This month's masterclass, one of our active members is going to be sharing how he helped craft and implement prospect management for the first time ever at his organization. Amazing, smart members at the Prospect Research Institute, and a huge shout out to all of them for being so generous and participating and sharing. I can't wait to see some of the report samples, the screenshots of the database, and have that discussion with all kinds of organizations. And all of our members come from different places and varying skill levels, so it should be quite the discussion. So here I am reviewing chapter 2 for the workbook for the Prospect Management, Intro to Prospect Management course, and thinking about next month's masterclass, where we're going to talk about the difference between policy and procedure and how to get started, and talk about what people are already doing. So how to sort of look back over what you're doing with a fresh eye. And what I realized is that there's like a kind of normal progression, I guess, or a usual progression towards prospect management practices. And it feels a little backwards, but that's how it is. So it's like an evolution. So as I know from many of our clients, on my clients on the consulting side, they can be raising millions and millions of fundraised dollars. They can have a full team of major gift officers across the country and still have shockingly little data infrastructure. It's amazing. These are incredible fundraisers. And so what we see is, or what I've seen, is an evolution. Their data practices are really good. They have good data. They've gone through database conversion, typically. They know what's in there. They have somebody in charge. They have policy and procedures, even if they're not documented, for gift entry and how the data is handled in the organization. They have an IT team, so they have a lot of that going in place. And then they reach that point where, in order to raise more dollars, in order to have ambitious fundraising goals, they have to somehow grow to the next level, and they turn to prospect management, and usually calling it prospect research, but we're talking about prospect management, a way of managing our prospects through that development gift cycle. So as I was putting all this together, I thought, well, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if you could just start with policy? But that's not how the discussion works. People don't start thinking, oh, let's create all this structure and policy, and whose role is that, and how are we going to measure that, and who are we going to track, and should we use our own terms in our prospect management program, or should we just accept the vendor's ratings, and call it that, and how do we train people? It's just not typically how it goes. The focus is on how are we going to raise the money for our fundraising priorities. And we kind of take it as it comes, like, okay, we're going to get a well screening. Here are those ratings. Everybody, here's what you got to look at. And we need some more research. We're going on visits. We don't really know these people. And so it just kind of evolves, and it can feel messy and unruly. And as a researcher, and if you're wearing double hats or multiple hats, researcher, database manager, it can be really, really painful. This report, that report, changing their minds, flip-flopping. You craft a report that you've had to program, and you're using all the vendor terms, and then, down the road they're deciding, oh, well, we should have our own ratings. All that kind of stuff can feel really frustrating. But it's just a typical or natural progression. My hot tip for you today, especially if you're struggling with that, no matter where you are in creating a prospect management program, if you're struggling with things changing, measurements changing, performance requirements are changing, all that kind of flux, that unruliness. It feels like, why can't we have a good prospect management structure? I want you to just take a deep breath, relax, and start by evaluating where you are. As researchers, we like structure, we like to create the rules, and if we put too much structure in place too soon, we can actually restrict the growth of our fundraising instead of expanding it. And that's not what we're aiming for. So take a step back and figure out where you are. If we know that the evolution is that we have to have our data practices in order, we have to have solid gift entry that's not creating duplicate records, that's properly coding the records. There has to be something in place for quality control on that. And if that isn't happening, you're going to see struggles in your prospect management program. If your direct appeal program isn't working, if you're not routinely checking for deceased or mailing to your full list, or at least cleaning your full list, then that's going to cause problems for your prospect management program because your prospects aren't going to have good contact information. So you can see how if you don't have the first steps down, you're going to struggle later. And if you try to put a lot of structure in place before all the pre-work, it's like leaping into an engineering program before you understand algebra and calculus. So take a step, write down, where are you? And actually, what we're going to do in the Intro to Prospect Management course is create a sort of generic outline for that prospect management policy and procedure manual so that you can start to plug in, well, where are you? And where are some of those gaps? And then what could that policy look like? What are the pieces that leadership, that the whole team needs to be looking at? And it helps frame the conversation with everyone, not as like rules and structure and policy and all this additional work, but where are we headed? How can a prospect management program codify or create a smooth working way for us to achieve those goals? That's a whole different conversation. So if you're struggling, even if you're not, or you're thinking about starting prospect management at your organization, or feel like you need that to get to your next goals, this course, Intro to Prospect Management, is going to help fulfill that for you, help walk you through that. I'm really excited about it. You're going to be hearing more about it in these chat bites, member updates. So stay tuned and keep up the good work. Again, shout out, huge thank you to all of our members at the Prospect Research Institute. That discussion we have, it really informs and helps others in our industry. Thank you for joining me today and keep learning.